Hello, my dear species. Welcome to the voice of a corner of an edgeless universe. In the compassion towards the evolution of a species through itself and through the world, what significance could contacting the invisible through non-existence hold? In this episode, I feel that my heart feels commanded. In this episode, I've written a statement which is the major focus of it. In the breaking of realities, the unreal shows its realness. I don't know why, but it has occurred to me that if there is a potential that we are multidimensional beings and there is a multidimensional activity taking place beyond the range of perception of the human being, the species requires to not prepare for the worst or best, but to prepare for poetically destiny's arrival. You see, if you ask a human being, do you believe in your destiny? The human being will say, yo man, I got free will, I create my destiny. But if you ask the tree, a plant, the plant, let's say the great oak tree would say that destiny is how energetic intelligence was planted. Do you know, on some level we could look at all human conscious activity, not only in this universal sector, but on this plane of existence, on this earth, as different plants with different designs growing. You see, at least I know this in the Farsi language, or I'll just say there's this idea of the garden of existence. You see, human beings, and it's not just philosophers, pretty much human beings, their attitude towards life was based on their activity. If you look at human life, I'm, in 2022 using this approach of in front of my eyes, it's the outer realm, behind my eyes, and the inner realm. But really, it's just different levels of activity that are accessible. It's as if we are not just a lost creature. We are an able creature dwelling in the void for some time. And so the human species, I find, this is, I will, use myself as my banner, as my own shield, but I will say, I feel that the species in its awareness and recognition that there is other dimensions of being will become not only curious but fascinated by how the intelligence in the present extends into those dimensions. You see, it's like imagine an ant on a table, and there's a group of people sitting at the table and they're all looking at the ant, and the ant has no clue it is being watched. And imagine one of those people, one of those people on the table is writing a novel about ants, and imagine the ant somehow gets to read that novel, It's another way of saying, the potential of that which is not divine is divine. You see, objects became subjects to themselves. Subjects realize they are different than objects. And the moment this is subject, the sense of self of you that is a subject, is you recognize it is in an unknown awareness. Without finding a contentment with the unknown continuity of direct experience, a human being will not be capable of fathoming different dimensions. If I was to say what is one leash around the human being's neck, I would say it is fear. And what fear is not wanting to get pushed or pulled out of the state you're in. Right? It's remarkable that this life it's like our life is happening in a changing world, and everything's changing. We sleep and we wake up, and it's as if like we act as if nothing happened, but this world is filled with conscious continuity and discontinuity. And in the conscious continuity, in moments where you are awake in a world, first of all, what greater awakening than that do you need? It is so easy not to care for the life that is accessible, but at the same time, every person is their own storyteller. I remember in one talk I said something in the lines of, you become a storyteller of your own soul. You realize the privilege of conscious intelligence, to not just discover and explore the unconscious, but in some sense to administer itself in multiple dimensions. You see, there is a huge chance that we are thinking that this life is our whole body, this physical life, not realizing that it is as if one finger of an inconceivable palm. I feel the species has reached the maturity through the discovery of the fragility of language. That we can never be alone when the life of this world is here. When I say contacting the invisible through non-existence, pretty much before I started recording this, I had this vision where I'm like, everything in life we consider it a sort of normality, and we don't attribute the concept of divinity to it, right? It's as if, a normal person is not divine. But, or let's say it's not divine enough, What I'm trying to say is that, let's say a multidimensional being can learn from the creation of worlds, but it learns from also the destruction. And if the creation of the world has become the starting point, and the starting point is not that of fascination, it's as if somebody who wants to go see another country, they don't have a fascination to know their own country, It's as if where we can go is more interesting than where we are. But to the multidimensional being, all the places you can go are being where you are. So let us say that there is a human being, and let us consider that the idea of divinity is just the greater secrets of intelligence in the universe, the deeper secret presence of intelligence in the universe. Which is another way of saying the greatest secret for the free will is that which is beyond it. And in some sense, how does the small realize the big? The small can never become big. This is the whole thing of why, in yogic thought, they say don't use the siddhas, I don't know how you say it, but it's pretty much like a yogi would meditate in ancient times. They would attain certain abilities. Then there would come this intuitive commandment that you're not to use your abilities, your, let's say, greater multidimensional abilities for the sake of yourself. You see, it's this strange thing that when a person, they just need to survive, maybe they might be afraid, maybe it's easy for them to be afraid. But when it is the survival of your world, I am telling you, strength comes as just an honorable as an honorable innate act. let's say in a being in the dimension of creation does not consider itself divine, and it lives its life, and when the divinity, when the creation is about to break, I'm not specifically talking about death, but it could be, like, the example could be an inventor who's watching his invention break, or an artist watching his art burn. It's as if it's like, it doesn't have to be like a person dying, but what I'm trying to say is that when the known conscious archetype begins going into turbulence, and slowly components to the common reality that is held begin fading or shifting, it's as if the definition of undivine, the opposite of divine, it's as if I'm trying to say that if shapes are not divine, what I mean by that is, like, let's say the human in the conscious waking state, what does the human being find? You find a biological body, you find first person point of view from your eye. And if you were to fathom what the world is, you would notice it's just the edge of the space that you're aware of. So your awareness is the edge of your outer world, actually, when it comes to your mind. But what I'm trying to say is, okay, let's say in, how would I say this? Okay, here, let me start here. Earlier when I said in the breaking of realities, the unreal shows its realness, it's another way of saying if what we think is not divine suddenly goes into a state where it's changing or absence is being found, that absence becomes a sort of divinity. And some people may be like Mr.Within, how is emptiness or absence divine? And I will tell you, it is divine because you see that what you were, you are not. I don't know, I'm trying to think of, like, I don't know why I can't find the proper words for this right now. But some part of me has this feeling of this idea I want to share with you, that if our visible life was insignificant, in the changing, in the breaking of our visible life, our invisible life becomes evident. You see, this is the beauty of this world, that because there's intelligence and consciousness is like self-awareness being the space of your moment. That means I can say that, like, a body is aware of the world, I can say a mind is being a world, or I can say that the whole moment is aware that I am in it, And really where identification is the movement of attention, People don't realize this, but this is actually what magic is. Magic is how the attention permits different reality. And people may say, Mr.Within, what kind of magic do you see in this world? And I will tell you, you will be shocked that human beings in 2022 may go in the park and, it may be a great sunny day and they may say, I'm free, but they don't understand how many different systems are actually possessing the value of the moment. You know what it is? It's like ever since creatures could speak, they have been fighting over world evaluation. And what else? Another word for the meaning of the world is truth. I'm trying to tell the audience that don't think creation and creativity is the only thing that is design. There is, believe it or not, beauty in chaos and order. When I was younger, I was avoiding chaos and I thought it was just order, and the order was beautiful, and why should the beautiful be disturbed, and the beautiful should continue only later on my ego horrified in the recognition that without the chaos the order would not know what it is, and without the order the chaos would not know what it is. That means, imagine there were two dimensions, right? Like there was the armies of evil and the armies of good, and imagine the armies of evil were about to destroy the armies of good completely, and suddenly like one leader of the armies of evil started defending humanity. Let me tell you why. Because the yin-yang symbol cares for its continuity. It's not just our conscious mind that wants to live on. Our subconscious mind is living on. It is the momentum of life. Sometimes when I give these talks, people, there's no way I can voice it, but I'll say something close to it. Sometimes when I give these talks, I feel that my attention doesn't belong to anything, and it's a heartbreak in paradise. Imagine somebody who went to paradise and they were heartbroken. Can you imagine? Let's create a story out of this. Imagine some person goes to paradise, and when he gets to paradise, he starts crying. And imagine the voice of God, the voice of truth in that paradise comes to this person who has entered paradise, and the person's crying, and the voice says, "You have among all the beings, selected in this game, you have entered the final phase. You have entered paradise. Why are you crying? O being in paradise, O soul that has found itself in paradise." And imagine that soul, that person who got into paradise, who was crying in paradise like he was heartbroken. The weeps of the heart are not in tears. Sometimes they are in releases of worlds that you cared for but can no longer. And that person in paradise who was heartbroken looks at God and says, "I got into paradise, but all the others remain." And it is the scolding of the creator by the creation. You see, that's something which is, I would tell you, transcendentally, divinely heartbreaking. That if there is a God, it was as if it's creation asking, why entertain the mistake? And this is, it's, how would I tell you? It's as if the story of man being a sort of display because God could not forgive itself. Do you see? It's the suggestion of a burdened conscience, where the exile of man was even, the exile of Adam in the theological sense was even a possibility. You see, it's as if, how can one create something and not be responsible for their creation? Do you see? And this is the bizarre thing, where it's as if the soul had to be a position in the conceptual domain of the world. It's as if the creator it's as if an artist, let's say, writes a novel and suddenly looks at the main character of that novel and realizes they have been writing their own life. Do you know, it's as if the creation is reflecting in every moment what the creator has done. Do you know, it's like a religious person in, saying, for example, everything's God's will. Let's say something good happens, the person's like, God did that, and something bad happens and the person says, God did that. And now imagine, you look at your own free will and you think God did that, but then you realize that, how would I tell you, it's as if the soul is the sight of God in man. The eyes of God, theologically speaking, is inconceivable. God is another way of saying, if who is that unknown king? Who is the unknown king of existence, or what is the unknown king of existence? You see, it's authority. Human beings, they feel lonely on a rock in the middle of nowhere. And what does the mind do? The mind has to engage in a game or fade. I am telling you, whoever you are, whatever ego you have, if you suddenly woke up one day and it was as if you were disconnected from your species, I will tell you, the ego is an energetic phenomenon. And when the energy does not prevail to its own self-conception, then it gives up. Do you know? Pretty much, you know, it's this just idea I'm trying to tell you, that if you consider the normal starting point of our perception to be a creature in a sort of world where conceptually, because we were created, the world had to be created. This is something I don't see a lot of philosophers talking about, but I think the continental philosophers of the future are gonna roar. You know, it's as if was infinity created. It's like infinity was never born. Infinity is an unborn trait. We start off as the person, the human entity starts off as a character in a known world. And when life changes, it's as if the known variables are being replaced for unknown variables. And when in the conscious mind, let's say 90% of the human psychology has become unknown variables and 10% known variables, that is when I would say the sort of this is actually part of religious initiation, but it's not. It's like a forgotten, you know, theological technology, a forgotten mystical technology, right? It's as if you are humbled by all that you do not know, and then you abide by your true nature because you are left as it. You know, this is the bizarre thing to wonder about, that when, let's say there's one person who knows and one person who doesn't know. And it's as if wondering which one has a greater meaning of life. And you will see that knowledge's journey is to the unknown. Either we turn the unknown into knowledge, or in some sense, the unknown. It's either like the known conscious intelligence, the effort of consciousness attempts to know all that is unknown, or in some sense, this temporary conscious creature realizes that every day, bit by bit, just like a candle melting, you know, the known variables are being replaced for unknown variables. And especially those beings who I would say, like, here's the bizarre thing, because I entered, I see us as being multidimensional beings, but because we all think we're in one dimension, we have the concept of life and death, you know, but really it's a dance between how attention has many ways to move, and when the world has many ways to move, a multiversal realm is accessible. You see, first it's as if you just keep in this idea. I've said this in so many talks, but I gotta repeat it here. There's this quote, they say the mind is a lousy master, but a great servant. And there's a quote that says you must command before you serve. These two quotes, if you link them together, it's another way of saying that you need to serve your intelligence, and then you need to, in some sense, after you have served it, you have understood how intelligence commands, and then you can command it. Right? So similarly, this would be divided into 3 dimensions for a conscious creature in a realm, where first you go to yourself and you serve yourself. And when I say yourself, this means you bask in the unknown potential of your own intelligence. You know, it's as if light beams enter the eyes of an animal and worlds are born that can be talked about. Become a student of yourself. And when I say yourself, that means you are fearlessly wondering about the edge of your intelligence. You see, everybody is like, how would I tell you, there is, I don't want to say there is a hidden God, you know, in the creation of God, but I would tell you that the greatest freedom, and this connects to the idea of the ultimatums of co-creation, it's wondering about, like, where can intelligence go? let's say, okay, let me first say those three dimensions. So first you serve yourself, and then you command yourself. Then you serve your species, and then you take a commanding role in your species. After you have served and commanded your species, you serve the world, and then you realize the unknown is another way of saying, for the humanized personality, we must start establishing a relationship with infinity. That means all ideas. This is something where philosophy teachers should shout at their students in universities. Wonder about how many ways the eyes of the world can see itself. That transition point from serving yourself to serving your species, it's another way of saying people, the nature of the human being is designed to serve what it loves. Do you know? Pretty much in this life, everybody's a romantic, but their romanticism is based on where their attention is at. It's as if somebody says, what's the greatest, state a human being can function in? And let's say the answer is that you served the love of yourself, and then you have become a commander of your own self. That means you are setting the value of how much you love yourself, right? But when I say yourself, that depends on your perspective. For me, myself is actually the species and the world. These are just bodies. That means my individual body is just like a human being recording a podcast on a balcony. My collective body right now is the whole species alive. It's like it is a field. I am telling you, it's not that, it's as if the nature is already behaving like a collective mind before before we can all plug our heads into a computer. Let's say to serve yourself, you love yourself, and to love yourself means to honestly see the absolute perspective of yourself, what you really are, and to love that. And eventually, whether you love the species, love yourself, or love your world, eventually you come to the unknown, and you begin loving the unknown dimension in those three classifications. That means you start off loving your known self, but then you start off learning loving your unknown self, which is another way of saying you have faith in yourself. And then it goes from a species loving itself, and you loving your species, and then you realizing you are loving the known dimensions of your species, and then you also love the unknown potential of your species. This is a type of beauty that surpasses 10,000 sunsets. And after, like, our species is still like, we're still fighting. It's like inner civil war. The species is in turmoil. The species is pretty much, nations are the fragmented psyche of one species, And it's not that they are wrong, but the administration of intelligence must be piloted honestly. I think there is no greater advice you can give a mystic. This is something where I don't think it will be my last words, but it's definitely a contender. Freely pilot on. That is. What else can we do? Attention moves. And as it moves, it changes. And as it changes, the known and unknown dance. And eventually the dancer realizes it's dancing. And that is, it's like Swami Krishnananda. This guy was so ahead of his time. But of course, it's based on his Vedic thought. So pretty much the Upanishads are so ahead of their time. Swami Krishnananda says religion is God remembering itself. And it's another way of saying, if you're not a religious person, the universal intelligence is realizing it is conscious, and it requires every sector of the cosmos to, in some sense, put their palm on the earth, put your palm on like a grass field, and in some sense become an ally of not just the planet but everything in your intelligence. I am telling you, this is such a powerful archetype where it will free you from how your own past holds you. That is the thing. It's like we are not looking for a regular enlightenment. We're looking for a beautiful enlightenment, and the beautiful enlightenment is the activation of the potential of the greatness of the species. It's like, what are we doing here? You know, why? Why are there creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere naming everything? What is the intent of causality's effect? You know, we stand in reverence of unknown intelligent occurrence. It's as if it's a grand happening. You know, a person may feel, I remember I posted this meme on Facebook where the meme was like this guy pointing his finger to his forehead, and he was saying, like, not to his forehead, pointing his finger to his head, and he was saying, it's like, nobody can use you if you're useless, you know. Oh man, emotions come and go, so do thoughts, and so do bodies. But when the world goes, I am telling you, it's as if you don't love your world, then you in some sense don't love what your existence is a part of. You see, evil is ignorance. Why? Because there's better things that can happen through a better approach. That's it. You know, it's a life takes a long time. It's like a house of cards takes a long time to be, built, but it can be instantly broken. And violence is like breaking evolution's efforts. It's like violence is an enemy of evolution, you know. That means in order to evolve, how would I say it? It's like we evolve to survive, but if we're violent, what's the point of survival? When you go to serve your world, that means, imagine, like right now, we are pre-advanced civilization, you know? But let me tell you, imagine we get to a point where it's post-advanced civilization. And post-advanced civilization means the human personality, the ego has been liberated. You know, the ego is shackling. It's as if what our minds are doing is turbulent now, but in the future it will experience a smooth era. There will come a crystal era. What I mean by this is that there will come a time on this earth where the human body's activity and the mind, the outer life and the inner life are so incredibly synchronized that would be how it's as if paradise on earth for those beings would be instantaneous. We cannot ignore the dimensions we're a part of. Back to the title. Contacting the invisible through non-existence. Pretty much, in the absence of form, you discover what else is there. And the challenge of our species is to become able to become content with its unknown self, and the moment it does, it has instantaneously become content with the unknown variables of all dimensions. You see, if you want knowledge, you're stuck in one world. But if you care for the unknown and you wonder about the truth of the unknown, let me tell you something hilarious. There was this sage, there was this yogi. I'm not going to share his name, but there was pretty much this mystic on YouTube, and he said that for a lot of beings, their moment of enlightenment is death. And then I thought, why death? And then it occurred to me that death is a moment that your expectations end. So death is the entrance into the unexpected, which is another way of saying when an explorer is exploring new lands, it cannot be dishonest. Do you understand? Birth is an honest event. Death, if it is an honest event, and I shouldn't say if, I'm saying death is an honest event. It's as if it's hilarious. It's like a species was found in the void, and it began building the world behind its eyes, and then started building the world in front of its eyes, then began wondering about how many ways, how many different angles, all the angles we see can be seen. You see, the species fears the unknown, but when it loves the unknown, that's when the engines of an advanced civilization, you can hear them. Do you know? You can hear the engines of the future, you know? You know, I sometimes feel worthy and unworthy, you know, of my existence. Moments that I feel unworthy of existence, it's not even a personality thing, it's just like this feeling that should my eyes be at all. And eventually the person realizes that which is the presence of the human awareness, it is deathless. You know, it's as if it's like a temporary being who had dreams and wanted achievements suddenly realized, you know, eternity cannot fail. In the breaking of normality, dimensions to a better realm, you know, are seen. I don't know. Perhaps we are here to see a system break, or perhaps we're here to see a system, in some sense, attempt infinity, which is an eternal effort. There is some force moving phenomena outside of the brain. This force, due to the brain's evolution and the development of culture from nomadic phase to an urbanized phase, it's as if your brain bows to the majesty of cosmic being. You know, the individual dissolves. It's as if you imagine you're a being, and so you experience the cause and effect dimension of everything. Do you know? You know, for a transcendentalist, the statement, you know, I remember before I was born, is not uncommon. As dimensions break, we see the opposite of what we have held on to. The meaning of the world is just where attention is. If the attention goes to the self and the known self, you take care of your body. If the attention goes to the unknown self, your identifications and associations as a body go away. But the issue is that the species, like an eagle, imagine an eagle, it's gripped a branch, and this eagle believes that it can't fly. And imagine somehow the eagle is released, and let's say a human being comes and throws that eagle into the sky, and the eagle leaves the branch, leaves the common dimension, and finds itself in an uncommon sky, in an unknown sky. And then from the unknown sky, the eagle sees its ability to go and fly to any tree in the forest of the garden of existence. You see, that's, I think, what happens, really. Do you know that our attention, which is the unknown interviewer, it is actually a conscious, like what is unconscious to the human personality is a conscious process to their own greater being. It's as if the person had a higher self, but it's as if because they identified with a lower self, the higher self was like, buddy, just be all of it instead of fragmented. It's like the body and the soul and the mind, they unite. Let's see what word I can create here. Body, soul, mind. So I'll put S-O-U-L at the ends. Then I'll put M-I-N-D. And then so this is the word I came up for that, which is like, it's pretty much the Turiya state, but I'm trying to make it accessible to the ego. And the word I would say is Somi, body, and dull. People are going to be like, what are you saying, Mr. I'm writing something down which I can't show the listeners, but pretty much I put the word soul and I divide, like I put S-O, imagine the word soul, I just opened it up, and then I put the word mind there, but from the I and the N I opened it up, and then I put the word body there. And then that's kind of like my effort of trying to create a name for this Turiya state. It's as if energy has no location, so there's nothing to do for it. It's just being. The dimensions of being are being. It's as if eternity never had problems, but it's the temporary that's like, oh my god, I'm here for a little while, what do I do? And I am saying, before the curtains are pulled, the greatest performance of the species needs to happen. You know what it is? It's as if like I'm that person in history, I think, where I'm proposing a problem to our whole species, as if I'm saying every child that will be born in this world attempt to solve this problem as I am. And the problem is, what is the most advanced state of humanity? And in some sense, how do we build an advanced civilization? This is really Mr. Within's gift. If the species cares to try to solve this problem of problems, it's pretty much as if before the human being dies, it wants to know what greatness means, but not the greatness of the self. Now it has come to the greatness of the species. But after the greatness of the species has been experienced, it's automatic. You begin wanting, it's as if galactic temptations arise. When eternal eyes can no longer say goodbye. In chaos there is beauty, which is another way of saying that I don't know how to say it. I'm just trying to say that it's like when the world breaks, it's beautiful. When the world gets created, it's beautiful. The beauty is just the ability of the moment to acknowledge all its dimensions. The purpose of human life is to activate, and its activation requires to be done in harmony with the whole species. This is the challenge of building an advanced civilization, that instead of making the human being go into a cave of misery and in some sense wanting to fade, we create an advanced civilization that you can't wait to wake up to go see how far the world advanced. Advancement, that word, is the greatest guardian angel of our future. I am telling you, those who go towards this recognition that for the first time in history a species wants to reset itself to, in some sense, start off as a multidimensional system. In the future, there won't be people anymore. Every person behind their eyes is a viewer of many dimensions at the same time. Who are we kidding? It's only when we speak we appear individual, but in our stillness and silence, and what some people call meditation, which would lead to samadhi, it's another way of saying that the egoic disposition of the mind, due to its fear, behaves artificially, only to realize that the witness of how the ego is happening has never been the ego. And the ego becomes a sort of airplane where you eject out of, recognizing the nature of attention from the beginning of this lifetime. I use the word unknown because our species is entranced by knowledge, but I would say it's as if the pure being it does not discriminate. It's as if we're not looking for a truth that is satisfies one world, but all worlds. And I think the species is actually blessed. Let me tell you why. We are blessed to experience collective failure first. Collective failure means that entrapment. It's like the species, its evolution is like it has gone in the quicksand of a sort of dehumanized cultural framework. In the future, there will be children who they will ask their parents if they can become robots, and the parents are going to be like, remember who you are. Dare I, revisit this again? What is the purpose of existence? For most human beings, probably they have concluded balance. Harmony and balance is the truth of existence. Let's say that's a workable truth, a workable purpose. Now, what is the purpose of non-existence? The purpose of non-existence is to allow existence to be existence. It's as if in Vedic thought they say there was a simultaneous experience of Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is consciousness, Prakriti is matter. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna telling Arjuna, this archer in a battlefield, pretty much God, in this book, the Bhagavad Gita, God tells this archer in a battlefield that how to attain, the divine Purusha, which is another way of saying before you need to pray to God, you have understood. It's as if like it's as if you realize the automation of your soul is in its firm, how should I say it? It's in its clarity that it is unknown before it is known. That means a part of the human psychology, it's as if there's a forest of terror, a forest of chaos, and the part of human psychology, there's a forest of order and greatness. Do you know? Something that I am saying, all smart parents need to do this. They need to tell their children that they need to tell their children they are great. That's a smart parent. As if get the child to think about what greatness means early on. And really what greatness is novelty. The new brings with itself, the future's gift. I've said in the subtitle, Arrival of Humanity's Greatest Allies. The idea also occurred to me that, let's say, human beings reorganized in a very conscious, compassionate way, the restructuring of all civilization 1.0. Or let's say the attempt of civilization 1.0 would be civilization 1.1. Do you know? Anyways, an advanced civilization, the species was headed towards an advanced civilization, and it had an acknowledgement that we are all, advanced beings, at least the potential is there. And it's as if upon the acknowledgement and honor of the advancement of our species, that's when allies come. Do you know? It's like when a person respects their own being, all that has respect finds itself there. Do you know? It's as if people don't realize how you look at life coordinates how the inner attitude or how the inner movements of life take place. That means, believe it or not, the moment you open your eyes, it's not that your attention is on an ego, but it's like upon the recognition, acknowledgement of attention of space, color, geometry, then you realize, where are my senses going? It's as if the mind is a river, the soul is an ocean, and the body is a drop on a leaf, and that leaf is called Earth. And the drop has fallen into a river, and this is pretty much life in a changing universe. Inside a river, a drop can, there's, let's say a river contacts, this rock in the river, and there's a drop that falls. Like, you can choose to be an individual in a river, or you can choose to be the whole river. In the future, an advanced civilization would kindly, compassionately request from the species that all those who would in some sense honestly want to live as a collective mind are welcomed. You see, it's as if we don't have a discrimination against anything that is conceivable. Imagine we stopped calling imagination, and we stopped calling reality, and in one moment we realized it is all being. This is the finale of conscious experience, really, when you realize whatever you do, whatever storyline, is thrown in the world, or jumps into a world, it's as if the evolution of shape is space, and the evolution of space is actually no longer dynamism applies. It's as if we are in the moving part of the cosmos. There's parts to this world where, at least I would, poetically grant myself to say that a person can person can just acknowledge human beings are the only intelligence on the planet, or you could begin to see that due to the nature of the mind being unknown and the mind having an ability to perceive that which is there or not there, do you know? It's as if I'm trying to think, like, how can we get a species and every human being to realize they're being an antenna? Pretty much we're even receiving the senses, you know? It's as if consciousness is the reaction of accumulation, or is a reaction to accumulation. You know, playfully in my inner realms, I have seen myself as the center of my world. And there's been moments where I have closed my eyes and guess what? There was nothing to see. It's as if as an unknown viewer stares at a pitch black screen. Freedom is the memory of that which was prior to the first memory of conscious existence. There was a component, call it the, you know, mystery of the soul, call it hyper soul, if you know. But it's as if before you were born, there was an energetic presence in the space. And usually what it is guys, I am telling you, just like how we have polite communication and, you know, rude communication, I am telling you, when you perceive a multidimensional context to reality where it's as if it's as if like people, as if the soul enters the body, it's as if there's some souls that rudely enter the body. Their karma gets defined by that. You know, there's some souls that are politely enter the body, poetically speaking. And let's say there's some souls that choose not to enter the body, and there are some souls that they have in some sense become responsible. Do you know, it's as if caring for mankind is the greatest divine act. It's as if it's okay to, you know, maybe not love yourself, not, you know, love your neighbors, but you must love your species. It's as if to not do so is an unnecessary failure. We have to somehow turn civilization, you know, to a page where it's as if civilization is a book, and every, you know, as time goes forth, chapters are being written on empty page. It's as if we need to, you know, pass one empty page and stare at that blankness. And then realize, based on how we have experienced life so far, every human being has accumulated enough sensory information to actually realize, if they don't have an expectation on their intelligence and they realize that the moment is present before the personality projects, it's as if you start your day with being freedom. It's as if freedom has nowhere to go, and so the soul laughs at the mind's misery. The significance of this talk is that there's a potential that future generations of human beings will begin establishing, aside from cyberspace, deeper and greater relationships of their own psychology in humanized and dehumanized domains. What I'm trying to tell you is that the children of the future generations are going to be so advanced that it's as if all the mistakes we went through, it's as if they were born beyond it, you know. You know, I'll share an experience I had. Long story short, I was on vacation and I find myself, you know, heavily intoxicated, you know. And this is a ridiculous story to share, but whatever. Let me pass my own folly. Something greater is possible, and the species is afraid of it. Why? Because it requires the greater self to live your life. Imagine that there was a choice of soul. Imagine in a parallel universe, the world was like a video game, and so you could customize your character. And imagine the soul realizing its freedom to be present as all space, you know. I would tell you, to someone who has experienced, the best way I can say it, the present. Okay. Excuse the intermission. To continue. For the first time, the species can entertain this scenario that internally every human being is actually the awareness to multiple senses of personhood. It's as if the brain has to classify somehow what it sees outside of itself. And so there's the development of the persona. It's as if some invisible force entered matter and then looked through the eyes of matter and then began in some sense administering matter. Do you know, it's like an unknown intelligence is activating through the known creature. And the activation of this unknown intelligence surpasses how the realm is composed. A multidimensional attitude towards life would be an attitude that cannot judge because there are so many layers to reality. You know, it would be a species that would completely change its behavior with information. As if all phenomena in the present is divine. Why? Because there are those in the future who will see it. You know, it's as if futurism is a divinity of its own. It's a visible divinity. Intelligence is a relationship of consciousness with the unconscious. What the unconscious is the possibility of consciousness. A species that finds a fascination with its collective victory has to find a fascination with the victory of all sectors of civilization. It's another way of saying that if you want to succeed, it doesn't matter if others fail, but if you want the species to succeed, it must be an infinite win-win. It's as if the species has to be smart enough to solve problems rather than to endure through them and have the future generations be conditioned. It's as if we need freedom fighters, but not freedom fighters on the streets. That's like ego freedom fighting. You know, a sort of egoic freedom fighting. A true freedom fighting is to become an honest explorer of your realm upon experiencing the unknown edge of your own attention. Just the fact that there's an unknown variable and consciousness is a mystery, that's enough to be like, okay, we have to bring in a multidimensional perspective. We have to begin to consider the observable universe being where all our value systems live, and the unobservable universe being the expansion of what we see. You see, it's as if somebody can say, what is the purpose of sight, right? Or who was it? I think it was like Plato. It was pretty much this philosophy on mathematics that was saying, like, what is a number? Like, if you say there's two apples, it's as if the number is being attributed to an object, but what is a number, right? And I think it was Plato who said this, I'm not sure, but somebody had said it's a form. I think it's Plato. Plato said that numbers are a form, right? And a form is in some sense like it's meaning without content. It's meaning without content. It's pretty much, it's like there's shapes we see in front of our eyes, and then there's abstract shapes. And anybody who's, let's say, they're like Mr. Within, I don't like spirituality, I don't want to, like, communicate as an advanced being on this planet. I'll tell you, like, just treat it this way. Like, life eventually changes, and it makes sense to see, like, to at least be honest enough to be like, okay, how much do I know how I am being, and how much do I know, in some sense, what is being done, right? And really, knowing is just awareness being. And so the unknown is an edgeless awareness being. Or perhaps it's even inconceivable. It's as if reality was a mathematical equation, there's an unknown x variable, and we're like, what do we do with this? What do we do with the mystery of our intelligence behind our eyes, being projected as a multidimensional phenomenon, or noumenon, as Immanuel Kant would say, and in front of our eyes it's in a singular dimension of existential form. It's as if in front of our eyes, we don't need to imagine, existence has already done that for us. Behind our eyes, imagination exists. Imagination may not exist in the outer realms. Like, I can imagine, like, let's say, a glowing blue sphere, like, hovering like above my palm, but it doesn't mean, like, it doesn't mean it's real in the inner realms, in the sense that it has form and structure and shape. But in the outer realms, it's as if there's an empty hand. Wrap this up. Poetry has been wild enough. In the breaking of realities, the unreal shows its realness. In how knowledge changes, the unknown is experienced. The unknown can be experienced as a self, it can be experienced collectively as your whole species, it could be experienced as collectively as your world. Right? It's as if what you don't know, what your species doesn't know, what it is, in some sense, it's like the world is unknown. Right? So when the species stops fearing the unknown, human beings, or you can say pure consciousness, finds itself having an allowance to reset its whole value system. You see, it's honestly like the legend of King Arthur and Excalibur. It's like, those worthy pull out the Excalibur. And similarly, the same sort of situation needs to happen with man's relationship with his own intelligence in its chaotic dimensions and ordered dimensions. It's as if it's an endless, infinite game. It's as if Earth is a child of heaven and hell. Both dimensions are found, present in the human life force. Really, I have this view that the destiny of people is actually what they hold important. That's it. That's destiny. Destiny is pretty much what is important, and that happens. It's as if it's the strange thing where we look back at history and we're like, did they live wrong or did they live right? And so we realize our attention simulates meaning. Now, the greatest simulation of meaning is that you have surpassed self-greatness, you have surpassed the greatness of your species, and now it's the greatness of your world. And that's pure, true mysticism. That is another way of saying, instead of the yogic archetype of the Atman Mahasamadhiing into the Para-Brahman, it's as if the Para-Brahman was the Atman. It's as if you realize that, right now you think you're listening to, this podcaster, but the whole universe is speaking. It is the presence of the intelligence of the realm. It is singular existentially, it is multidimensional experientially, and in some sense the awareness that functions through both, and a bird that has flown long enough on the sky and has landed on endless branches, it must begin to realize that to surpass itself is to be itself inconceivably. That means when you can be the unknown in a known world that's encapsulated, that's surrounded by the unknown, it's as if you have become fearless, because exploration becomes your return to what you are. It's as if the illusion crumbled and the original state smiled, That is I don't know how to tell you. It's the existential situation and how human experiences is in some sense piloting and moving through this world. There's so many questions about this that our species right now isn't even asking. Sometimes I'm like, it's like the civilization found peace too soon if it doesn't want to update. That's I think the sad thing about life, that we're missing out on on the collective greatness. That's how I know we're not an advanced civilization. We're missing out on our greatness for forgetting that after the individual life, it's like then you have it's like you have collective lifetimes. It's like some people think it's just individual reincarnation. Let me tell the Buddha something. It's as if there's collective reincarnation. It's as if the person got enlightened out of the world, then they realize the world got enlightened out of existence. In some sense, it's as if the cosmos returned to nothing, and nothing had to have force. It's the strange thing does emptiness have a force? Does reality, the illusion crumbling into the truth, does it have a force? Is there a force behind the viewing being? It's like right now, my eyes are closed and I can totally see that when I say the brain is an antenna, it's kind of like, imagine there's a river and I've put my head in the river. That's the inner worlds to me. It is it's as if, a very wild way to wash your hair. Contacting the invisible through non-existence. Pretty much the species is going to establish multidimensional relationships with inner realm archetypes. Some people are like the aliens, haven't been on the planet, but we're like, ever since we saw an alien movie, it's like there's a concept of an alien in our minds. And it's pretty much just the unknown self that really is the thing. If an extraterrestrial civilization, let's say aliens come to the planet in the future, and they look at us and they say to us, we're all the same, we'll be like, this is a very enlightened, extraterrestrial civilization. But if they come here and say that you got to do something for us to get into heaven, it's as if if extraterrestrials are, bargaining artificial paradises for human free will, that's going to be a very unenlightened extraterrestrial relationship. Pretty much I'm saying that it's just man's relationship with the world being the relationship of his mind with his body. Just like a person can visualize, close their eyes and imagine what they look like, similarly the mind has various ways of projecting selfhood. What that means is it's as if what imagination is endless paint, types of paint which can be placed on a canvas. And what the canvas is space. It's as if some people feel they're not artists, but being alive is art. It's as if life is art, moving. Life is moving art, think that's a good title for an episode. Hopefully I'll remember this. And so, every person's different. They can have a relationship with, transcendental archetypes. They could choose to see angels, cyberspace parallel selves, time traveling selves. There's so many ways the sense of self can have a relationship multidimensionally with itself. If the species somehow is not afraid of the unknown, it may stop reacting to the unknown through fixated and firm belief. Right? What I'm trying to say is that in order for a system to update, enough moving factors in that system have to choose the new. It's as if either the new enters the room or the past stays in it. And perhaps there will be great allies of humanity. Perhaps the moment we find the collective victory, the victory of our species, to be the most important thing, that victory means all individual dimensions required to be victorious. Imagine an advanced civilization caring for the victory of every human solar effort. We should not even fear the evolution of freedom. And some people are going to be like, Mr. Within, that's easy to say, why shouldn't I fear the massive emptiness of the cosmos? And I'll tell you, because you are the main act. It's pretty much just different in every person's DNA being like a different instrument, and the music that the DNA creates through the efforts of the mind plus the free will, or the mind is the free will. Wonder about the ultimate freedom, and it's pretty much collective harmony and then a reset. It's as if perhaps the emptiness is a revelation of that which is in some sense eternally present. Really, how much does our species care about philosophy, mysticism, and the unknown dimensions of life? To me, when I see a teacher just talking about the past, it disgusts me. It's like a disgusting thing to watch. But when you see somebody who they teach through the novelty of it's as if when you speak to someone who has discovered something, it's as if you become the greatest student now. The species does require a positivist attitude, because it has to be like, which one's better? Is it better to expect victory, or is it better to expect defeat? The issue with expecting defeat is that you don't wonder about the victory as intensely as you could. But it could be that victory it's as if someone, like you see it in movies even, it's like the general's about to be victorious, this general against another army, and then last second his ego kicks in, and it's as if he becomes unworthy of victory. Every person should in some sense be writing books on how their DNA is like an antenna receiving the world. receiving reality, and in the future, an advanced civilization, I've envisioned this, there will be a giant library of names where every person's creative effort in the lifetime is just preserved there. It's as if that's the advanced civilization, in some sense eternalizing it's those who care for it, those who have built it. Honor is just acknowledgement. A lot of our problems, even the concept of an enemy, a lot of people who they think they have enemies, it's just this idea of acknowledgement and that which has gone unacknowledged, you know. And philosophically speaking, there may be even realms beyond honesty, but my consideration is this: that when else can the great be attempted? And where else can truth be? It's all now. Right now is like the eternal potential of the temporary. When the species becomes fearless, it becomes capable to see. When you don't fear something, you can look at it and understand it. But when you fear something, you try to avoid it, run away from it, and this sort of amygdala fight or flight response, the species should in some sense change it from like fight or flight to in some sense being like to understand or not to understand. Because if you want to understand the situation, you need to be fearless. And for me, this is why I have an honor for, like, you know, surgeons, right? Because they have a sort of fearlessness in doing what requires to be done for the correct result to happen. A species, and imagine global culture defined by novelty, it would be as if true freedom is greatness actualized. And if we are content with our own unknown self, then to in some sense fathom unknown senses of others and the unknown other, there's no issue. The moment a person has contentment with the unknown presence of how their attention is being, then everything else is just present in your awareness. It's as if you're the whole moment. Nothing can happen to the moment other than it being. Dehumanized truth is instantaneous. Humanized truth is a journey. The future has to choose if it wants to care for all that is, or to perish shackled by fear. You know, the species has to surpass its fear of a multidimensional reality. This has to be done. Why? Because we are being it. It's as if, you know, somebody was like, I don't believe that, and then the mystic was like, what's that I? It's as if a person hears let's say somebody believes in like Chinese dragons, okay? And, you know, they say Chinese dragons are real, and you're like, I don't believe that. And then that person's like, the same way I'm fathoming a Chinese dragon, your sense of self is a projection. You see, it's as if our sense of self is a work of imagination. But it's a work of imagination held by attention in such a way that it is being certified as the first reality. Honesty is the greatest revelation. I can't tell you, like, there is something about mysticism that when you meet a dehumanized state or dehumanized intelligence, you have to actually patiently watch. It's as if you can watch yourself as a body, you can watch yourself as your mind, which is your inner realms and ego and all that, or you can watch yourself as pretty much an energetic presence of all that is prior to its segmentation. So what I'm trying to say is that space is like an infinite oneness without content. I really don't know how our species will enter the future. One thing I know is that there's going to be so many new technologies that are going to revolutionize reality. And it's just a matter of how we want to tell the story of the human being. This is my wish upon this realm. But find the greatest story and wonder about its greatest relationship with direct experience, and realize that direct experience is an ultimate state of being. It's as if the person was like, oh my god, look how easy it is for me to think that we are not ultimate in the ultimate state of being. And then the person's like, it's the same level easy to think that you are. Do you know? It's as if inner freedom, it's just knowing. Outer freedom is responsible action of like 8 billion creatures on 8 billion human beings on Earth. It's like, what can truth do other than be? Contacting the invisible through non-existence. It's just contentment beyond chaotic and ordered display. It's just all that I'm saying is that how you are being is the liberation of what you're doing. What you are doing is based on how you are being. Their codependence renders them as one. The dance of the yin-yang, the white and black of the yin-yang symbol, it's as if they realize they're in the same circle. So it's another way of saying when consciousness or becomes full circle, which is another way of seeing its edgeless awareness. It's as if humanity has entered the hall of great intelligence. It's just now the challenge of the species. It's as if the greatest puzzle, collective victory. That means those who think about what's the fastest way towards the collective greatness of the species, they're the smartest people. That's it. You know what it is? I'm starting to realize that those